Hello, it's Len from Straight Talk from the Homeland. Welcome back to the channel. Today is Aussie Day, 26th of January, and we have a very special Australian Armenian with me, Mr. Peter Davidian. Normally my subjects are a little bit heavy, but we're going to talk about something very special about culture and about, I guess, the love of life. So, Peter, you're here in Australia, born in Australia, as I understand.
Yes.
Just in a short way, how did your family come to Australia from Armenia?
Oh, it's a long story, but I'll do it in a short way. I can trace it back to the beginning of the 17th century when the Shah Abbas of Persia, after some difficulties with the Ottoman Empire, decided to relocate the Armenians of Nakhchivan to Persia, as it was known in those days, Iran. And so they made a community in Isfahan, which then became New Julf, the capital Julfa of Nakhchivan. So that's going back 400 years. And then, as time has gone on, my great-grandfather went to India, as many Armenians did, and then he brought my grandfather to put him in school in Calcutta. So there was an Indian connection that goes back many generations. And at the same time, my grandmother was also taken separately as a teenager to school in India, actually called the Davidian Girls' School, which was next to the Armenian College for Boys.
And this is all set in the context of this incredible trading relationship that Armenians had. I mean, I've personally been to Dakar and seen the amazing Armenian church there. And, of course, we know that there's a church in Singapore.
There is.
The first church, the oldest church of Singapore, I believe, where the founder of the Singaporean national flower lies, Agnes. And your family then progressed to Indonesia, right?
Yes, in those days it was known as Dutch East Indies. My grandfather was working in shipping, and he was based in Sulawesi. In those days it was called Celebes Islands, and in Makassar, and where he obviously married, and then my mother was born there. And then they encountered a lot of hardship when the Japanese invaded in 1942, I'm pretty sure. And as a result of that, my family lost everything they'd established there and were marched off into the jungles in the highlands and spent the next 3.5 years in prisoner of war camps.
Wow.
At the end of that period, which thank God they all survived physically, they had the opportunity to either go to the Netherlands because it was the Dutch East Indies. They could have gone to England because they held British passports, or they could come to Australia, being part of the British Empire, and the Australian troops were the ones that went in and they were released into the custody and care of the Australian army.
And the viewers will be very interested in what is this that you are holding, Peter?
This is a sitar, an Indian instrument, but originally was designed by a Persian, Amir Khusro, blending instruments from the Middle East, from Persia, to India. So we have a sitar. It's become my instrument of choice for the last 40 years.
Wow.
And for me, it's like a cultural bridge.
Wow. I'm going to talk about the cultural connections in a minute, but before I do, I just wanted to understand from you, living here in Australia, how do you feel about the Armenian homeland? What is your connection to the homeland?
Well, I visited there for the first time at the beginning of 2019, so 7 years ago. And I believe for at least 3 or 4 generations, I was the first one from my family to return there. I took my wife and 4 of my daughters, so a number of children, and in memory of my mother who had just passed away, and she never had the opportunity to go there. And as soon as I arrived, as soon as the plane landed and people were clapping because we had arrived, I stepped out onto the tarmac and I felt like I'd basically come home.
Wow.
It was a very, very potent experience.
Wow. So that spiritual experience, the way you connected with Armenia,
Yeah.
I think, Peter is, he's done a lot of amazing things in Armenia, different concerts, and he has a very close connection with the Indian community, of course. And I have to say that at one stage he came to Arani Lodge with his band, something which we want to thank him very much for, because
it was a pleasure.
It was a time when the Artsakhi refugees were there, and the children obviously had gone through lots of trauma, and yet Peter's music, which we'll hear shortly, it transformed those children and gave them some semblance of humanity back. But before we hear your beautiful music, Peter, could you just describe why you think that the connections with the cultures of India, the ancient connections, which I go back centuries, even some of the words in Indian paneer for cheese is the same as Armenian. Why do you think it's so important that we maintain a very strong, not just cultural relationship?
Well, firstly, the cultural relationship of this type of music is a very spiritual experience, just as it is for me sitting in a church and these special places in the motherland. It's a very potent experience. So that is one reason. But not only that, of course, in this modern world, trade is very important, and having countries that are obviously much larger, much more potent, if you like, on the world stage, without getting into geopolitics too much, because I'm a musician, is very important. And I feel that as an Armenian with a long history with Indian music, I feel it's a bit of a bridge, if you like.
Indeed. And Peter may not be into geopolitics, but I am, as you know. And I will say that the connection with India is of crucial importance to Armenia, not just from the strategic side, because, of course, Armenia provides a pathway for India and all of South Asia through Iran, to Georgia and onwards to Europe and vice versa. And of course we know that the Indian government have been supporting Armenia with in our defence preparedness, and that's very, very important. So from a cultural, from a language, from a defence and even economic perspective, I think the countries have been tied together for centuries, and you're living proof of that, really. So
I'm just a humble musician.
And he is, and he exudes, he's a special person with some special, beautiful skills, and we're going to hear them now. So I understand that, Peter, you can actually here to do some komitas.
This is a piece called Darane, which means for the spring, even though it's the middle of summer.
Շատ սիրում եմ։
Yes, you should.
Okay, thank you very much for listening. This is Len from Straight Talk from the Homeland. We're going to finish with something very Armenian now. And please like, share and subscribe.